The company belongs to your sister now, Simone. I built it. I decide who carries it forward. That's the way it works. He said it at the dinner table. Sunday dinner. Dishes still warm. My mother standing in the kitchen doorway, hands folded like she was bracing. My sister Brianna across from me, not surprised. Not surprised at all. I had worked in that company for 11 years. I want to tell you about a phone call I received 4 years after that Sunday dinner. A Tuesday morning in March. I was at my desk, second coffee cooling beside my keyboard, when my cell rang from a number I didn't recognize. The man on the other end was measured and professional. He identified himself as a senior revenue agent with the Internal Revenue Service. He confirmed my full name, my address, the last 4 digits of my social security number. Then he said, "Ms. Hargrove, we're conducting a compliance audit of Hargrove Logistics, LLC. In the original articles of organization filed with the state 22 years ago, you are listed as a 51% owner of that company. Those documents have never been amended. However, the business's federal tax returns for the past 4 years list you as having 0 ownership interest. We need to reconcile that discrepancy. We were hoping you'd come in and speak with us." I set the coffee cup down very carefully. 51% owner. My father had never told me. My sister had been running that company for 4 years as though she owned every brick of it. And according to the United States government, she didn't. My father, Gerald Hargrove, started Hargrove Logistics in 1999 with a used cargo van, a regional distribution contract, and the specific stubbornness of a man who has decided that failure is not a language he speaks. By the time I graduated college, it had 14 employees, 7 vehicles, and contracts across 3 states. I joined at 23. Not because he asked me to, he didn't. Because I had watched him build something from nothing for my entire childhood, and I believed in it the way you believe in things woven into your earliest memories. I started in logistics coordination, moved into operations management by 28. By 32, I was running day-to-day operations while my father handled client relationships and business development. We were a good team, not just family, actually good at it. Revenue doubled in my 2nd year. We expanded into a 4th state in my 6th. My sister Brianna was 5 years younger and had spent her 20s doing other things, marketing at a tech firm, real estate. Then she moved back to Baltimore and started coming around the office occasionally. My father lit up when she walked in, warmer, easier, different from the way he was with me. I told myself it was just the baby of the family dynamic. I was 34 when he called the Sunday dinner. He waited until the main course was cleared. He folded his hands on the table, the gesture he always made before something final, and told me he had been thinking about succession and had concluded that Brianna would be taking over as head of Hargrove Logistics. He gave reasons: fresh energy, a shared vision, getting older. I asked what my role would be. He said he hoped I'd stay on in an advisory capacity during a transition period. Advisory capacity. I had been running that company's operations for 6 years. I looked at Brianna. She looked at her plate. She already knew. They had discussed it, the two of them, without me, decided, and called a Sunday dinner to present it as a fact. I did not make a scene. Gerald Hargrove does not raise people who make scenes. I said I needed to think. I drove home. I sat in my car in my driveway for 30 minutes. The next morning I told him I would not be staying on, that it wouldn't work for the company or for me. He nodded like a man who had expected this. He made his peace with it before I even spoke. I cleared my desk by Friday. I'll keep this short because this part doesn't need to be long. I was unemployed for 6 weeks. I had savings, and I used those weeks to sit with what had happened without immediately burying it in action. What I felt, in order: shock, humiliation, grief, and then a cold, clarifying anger that I found far more useful than any of the others. In month 2, I took a consulting position with a regional supply chain firm. I was good at it, of course I was. I had 11 years of practical education in exactly this. By year 2, I had 7 clients. I incorporated my own practice, Hargrove Ops LLC. I kept my name on purpose. By year 3, I was billing more annually than I'd ever made at my father's company. My father and I weren't estranged. Too strong a word. We were careful with each other. He called on birthdays. I answered. We did not discuss the company. A layer of glass between us that neither of us named. Through my mother, I heard small things. The company was stable, not growing. Brianna had changed some systems. Let go of 2 managers I'd hired. I nodded and did not ask follow-up questions. Then the IRS called. I called my attorney before I called the IRS back. Her name was Cassandra Obi, a business and corporate law attorney I had retained 2 years earlier for my own practice. I trusted her. I called her the same Tuesday morning and read her exactly what I'd written down from the agent's voicemail. She was quiet. Say the last part again. You are listed as a 51% owner in the original Articles of Organization. Those documents have never been amended. Another pause. Simone, do not call the IRS back yet. I'm going to pull the state filings for Hargrove Logistics today. Can you come in tomorrow morning? I was there at 8. She had the documents spread across her conference table. The original Articles of Organization for Hargrove Logistics, LLC, filed with the Maryland Department of Assessments and Taxation in 2002. She turned a page to face me and slid it across without saying anything. 2 members listed: Gerald Arthur Hargrove, 49%, Simone Marie Hargrove, 51%. I stared at that page for a long time. Your father set up the company with you as majority owner, Cassandra said. 51%. He's been the 49% partner this whole time. Nothing in these documents has ever been amended. No transfer of ownership. No updated operating agreement. No assignment of membership interests. These are the controlling legal documents for this business. I heard what she was saying. I was processing it. Why would he do that? I don't know, but I can tell you what it means legally. She told me. It meant that when my father told Brianna she was taking over Hargrove Logistics, he did not have the legal authority to give her 51%, because 51% of that company was not his to give. It was mine. The transfer everyone had been operating under for 4 years, my father, my sister, the company's accountant, was never legally executed. No signed membership transfer documents. No properly filed state amendments. Nothing that would hold up under legal scrutiny. What there was instead were 4 years of federal tax returns filed under Brianna's sole ownership. Tax returns that directly contradicted the state documents showing me as majority owner. That's what the IRS flagged, Cassandra said. Someone, the company's accountant, your sister, or both, filed taxes showing a completely different ownership structure from what the legal documents say. The IRS does periodic cross-references. They found it. I sat back. I need to ask you directly. Did your father ever ask you to sign anything related to company ownership? Anything at all, even something you might not have fully understood at the time? I went through everything I could remember. Carefully, the way I do everything. No, I said nothing. When I left, I signed a standard severance acknowledgement. That's it. Cassandra nodded slowly. Then, as far as the law is concerned, she said, you are still the majority owner of Hargrove Logistics, and have been for 22 years. I called him from the parking garage outside Cassandra's building. He answered on the second ring, steady voice, the composed voice he always used. Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. All right. When you filed the company paperwork in 2002, why did you put my name down as 51% owner? Silence, not a short silence. The kind that fills up with something being decided. How did you find that? He said finally. Not a question. A man recalculating. The IRS called me. They're auditing the company. My name is on the controlling documents. It's never been changed. 4 years of tax returns say otherwise. They want to know why. He exhaled, long and slow. When I started the company, your grandfather had just been through a lawsuit. A business partner had nearly taken everything. I didn't have much capital and I was worried. If the company ever got sued, I didn't want our home attached to it. I put it in your name because you were young and had no assets. It was protection. I let that land. Did you plan to tell me? I planned to restructure it properly once the company was established. Then years went by and I stopped thinking about it. It was administrative. Background. But you gave the company to Brianna. I told Brianna she was running the company. I assumed my accountant had handled the paperwork. I didn't check. Your accountant filed 4 years of taxes with Brianna listed as sole owner, Dad, with no record of any ownership transfer. Because there was none. Silence. I didn't know that. And here's the thing, I believed him. I know how that sounds. This is the man who blindsided me at a dinner table and rearranged my professional life without a conversation. But I know Gerald Hargrove. He was never a detail man. He was a big-picture man who trusted the people around him to handle the details, and trusted them completely, sometimes past the point of reason. He had genuinely not thought about a document filed 22 years ago, and I believe Brianna hadn't known either. She had walked into a company her father handed her and had no reason to examine the foundations of a gift. The problem was the accountant. 4 years of returns that should never have been filed that way. And good intentions paired with bad paperwork still have consequences. What does this mean? My father asked quietly. I don't know yet, but I have an attorney and the IRS is involved. So whatever it means, it's going to be official. He was quiet. Simone, I'll call you after I meet with the IRS, I said. Okay, Dad. He said okay. I sat in that parking garage and looked at the concrete wall in front of me for a while. Cassandra came with me to the federal building. The revenue agent, a careful man named Douglas, who wrote everything down and never seemed rattled, had 4 years of company tax returns across the table. He walked us through the discrepancy. The state records versus the federal filings. The 4-year gap between what the legal documents said and what the returns claimed. Cassandra walked him through the original articles of organization, the absence of any ownership transfer documentation, my severance paperwork, which covered employment separation and nothing else. Douglas took notes, thanked us, said we'd hear from the agency within 60 days. Cassandra told me on the drive back to prepare for 3 likely outcomes. First, the IRS determines the ownership discrepancy is a material misrepresentation. The company owes back taxes, penalties, and interest calculated on the correct ownership structure. Second, depending on intent, a referral to the Department of Justice for criminal investigation. Third, the legal ownership question gets litigated in civil court, where the outcome would follow the documents, which meant following me. What's most likely? All 3, she said. In that order. The civil matter opened 3 weeks later. Brianna retained a DC firm. During discovery, I saw the company's financials. Profitable but flat, not growing the way it had grown. 2 contracts had lapsed. The fleet needed equipment updates that hadn't been made. The vendor relationships I'd spent years building had started to fray. I had spent 4 years building a new practice. The company had spent 4 years treading water. There was a mediation attempt in month 2. Brianna's attorneys proposed a buyout, a valuation they had commissioned that Cassandra described diplomatically as creative. We declined. In month 4, Brianna called my cell phone directly, not through attorneys. Can we talk? She said. Just us. I said yes. We met at our mother's house. Her kitchen, the same table where Sunday dinners happened. I arrived first, sat in the chair I'd always sat in. Brianna came 20 minutes later, no coat despite the March cold, looking like someone who hadn't been sleeping. She sat across from me, looked at the table, then at me. I didn't know, she said. I need you to know that first. Dad told me the company was mine, and I believed him because he was our father, and that is what you do. I know, I said. The accountant filed what he filed because Dad told him I was running things now, and he assumed the paperwork had been handled. Nobody checked. She pressed her hands flat on the table. It was an enormous, stupid mistake, not a conspiracy. I know that too, I said. She looked up. Then what do you want, Simone? I had spent 4 months asking myself that exact question. The company back, I said. Not revenge, not to punish you. I want what is legally mine and I want to run it the right way. And me. I thought about 11 years of my life poured into something handed to someone else at a dinner table. I thought about the 4 years I'd spent building something new from nothing, which, it turned out, I was capable of. I thought about my sister calling without an attorney because she still knew, somewhere, that I was her sister first. You can stay, in a real role with real responsibilities. Not because I owe you that, I don't. But because you know the company now, and because we share a name on the door and I am not interested in burning it down. She stared at me. Why? Because Dad built it and it has his name on it and I'd like to keep it that way, I said. If we can, she nodded. Slowly. Like someone absorbing something they hadn't expected. The civil case settled 4 months later. The settlement recognized me as the controlling 51% member of Hargrove Logistics, LLC. Brianna retained 49%, not by default, but through a properly executed transfer from our father's stake, done correctly this time, every document signed, witnessed, and filed. The accountant was replaced. A new CPA firm spent 3 months reconstructing the filings and submitting amended returns. The back taxes and penalties were substantial. They came out of the company. The IRS did not refer the matter for criminal prosecution. They determined the misrepresentation was negligent rather than intentional. That distinction matters enormously. My father paid a portion of the penalty settlement from his personal assets. He sat in a conference room, signed what he was asked to sign, wrote the check, and did not make excuses. Afterward, he called me. "I want to say something. Okay, what I did 4 years ago at that dinner was wrong. Not just the paperwork, the whole thing. You had earned that company more than anyone. I had reasons." A pause. Reasons are not the same thing as being right. I let the silence sit between us. "I know you know that," I said. "I've known you knew it for 4 years. When can I come see the new office?" We had just moved into a larger space. Room for the expanded fleet I was already planning. "Thursday," I said. "I'll put coffee on." He made a sound I hadn't heard from him in years, a laugh, small, rusty, real. I stepped back into Hargrove Logistics on a Monday in October. The company I walked into was not the one I had walked out of. Smaller in some ways. Some contracts permanently lapsed. Some relationships to be rebuilt one call at a time. The fleet needed work. None of that surprised me. I had spent 4 years doing exactly this kind of work for other companies. I knew how to find where the leverage was highest and start there. What surprised me was how it felt to walk through that door with my name on the ownership documents. Not triumph, something quieter, recognition, the feeling of arriving somewhere that had been waiting for you, not because the universe arranged it, but because a document filed 22 years ago had a name on it, and that name was mine. And the truth of a thing has a way of surfacing no matter how long it sits buried under paperwork and Sunday dinners, and the particular silences of a family that loves each other badly. Brianna was at her desk when I arrived. She'd been there since 7. She had the Q3 vendor reports printed. I took them, sat down at the desk that had become mine again, read the reports. We got to work. I don't know exactly why my father put my name on those founding documents in 2002. He's told me the liability story, the lawsuit, the protection strategy, the plan he always meant to formalize that never got formalized. I believe that explanation. I also think there is something underneath it he doesn't know how to say directly, that he put the controlling share in my name because some part of him, at the beginning, already knew which of his children would run that company. He saw it in me before I saw it in myself. And then life happened, and preferences shifted, and he made a choice at a dinner table that was not his to make. The document told the truth the whole time. Sometimes the truth sits quietly in a filing cabinet for 22 years. And then a revenue agent does a cross-reference on a Tuesday, and a phone rings, and the person who answers finds out that what was always theirs was always theirs. Know your documents. Know what has your name on it. Know what you built and what it is worth, and do not accept a Sunday dinner as a legal instrument. And if the IRS ever calls asking for your name, answer the phone. "Thank you for staying with this story." If it made you think about family, about fairness, about what we build and who it truly belongs to, hit the like button and subscribe. It helps more people find stories like this one. I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever had something taken from you and found your way back to it? I read every single one. Until next time, take care of yourself. Read the fine print and know your name on things.